In the quiet village of Ottern, nestled in the Black Forest of Germany, there was a legend whispered in graveyards and schoolyards alike. A doll that was said to move on its own, to whisper to children in the night, and to lead them to their deaths. Over a span of 40 years, 200 children were reported missing, and each disappearance shared one chilling common detail. They had been gifted the same doll. But what makes this tale more disturbing isn't just the body count. It's what the parents did afterward. They didn't destroy the doll. They didn't lock it away. They worshipped it. Tonight, we uncover one of history's darkest forgotten folktales, one that danced between folklore and reality. A story of grief, belief, and horror. This is the doll that killed 200 children and why their parents worshipped it. Her name was Elise Reingard. She turned 7 on January 12, 1871. Her father, a craftsman, gifted her a doll. Handmade, porcelain, fine silk dress, painted lips. But there was something strange. He didn't make it himself. He said it had been left on his doorstep. 3 days later, Elise vanished. The door was locked, the window sealed. The only clue, a doll now seated in her bed, its hands smeared in what appeared to be ash, and on the wall, written in soot, "She came home." The village was horrified. Elise was the first, but not the last, because within months, the doll would appear again, delivered to another child, a boy named Jacob. He disappeared within 48 hours. The doll, left on the swing set in the snow, its head tilted toward the forest. No one saw who left it. No one heard anything. But everyone began to fear the same thing. The doll wasn't a toy. It was a messenger, or a hunter, and it had already chosen its next child. By 1873, the town of Ottern had changed. 7 children gone, all within 2 years. All reportedly seen holding the same doll just days before they vanished. The villagers stopped celebrating birthdays. Toys were burned, windows sealed. Children were kept inside, but none of it mattered. The doll still came. Sometimes it would arrive wrapped in cloth and left on a doorstep. Sometimes nestled inside a tree stump. Sometimes, most disturbingly, it simply appeared in the child's bed. One mother swore she heard her daughter whispering late at night, but when she entered the room, her daughter was gone, and the doll was under the blanket. The villagers began keeping a list, not of names, but of dates. Dates when the doll appeared. Dates when a child vanished. Dates when the air felt heavy, still, off. One entry read, June 2, she knocked. We did not answer. The doll was in the field at sunrise. This time, she took the twins. By 1875, the number had grown. 33 missing. No bodies, no sounds, no screams. Only the doll. Each time untouched, pristine, its face calm, its dress clean, except for one detail that always changed, the eyes. Sometimes blue, sometimes green. Once, they were said to be missing entirely, just deep black sockets. By now, many believed the doll wasn't cursed. They believed it was possessed, or worse, that it had a will of its own. A will that couldn't be reasoned with, couldn't be stopped. And yet, what the town did next defied all logic. They didn't flee. They didn't fight. They began to build her a place of honor. By 1877, something had changed in Ottern. The panic had faded, not because the doll had stopped appearing, but because the people had stopped resisting. They began to believe something new, that the doll was not a curse, but a gift. a bridge between the living and the lost. Families who had lost children began reporting strange experiences. The doll, they said, whispered their child's name. One mother claimed it sang her daughter's lullaby at night. Another swore the doll's hand reached for hers when she cried. At first, these accounts were dismissed as grief-fueled illusions, but they multiplied. Soon, families who hadn't lost a child began seeking the doll on purpose. They prayed to it, built shrines, left it gifts, locks of hair, drawings, teeth, anything a child might have left behind. They called her Kindsmutter, the mother of children. Church leaders from neighboring villages condemned the practice. They called it heresy, paganism, madness. But the people of Ottern didn't care. To them, Kindsmutter was all they had left. A comfort, a memory, a silent presence that watched over them, even if it also took something away. And over time, that quiet worship began to look more like reverence, and reverence became ritual. In 1881, 10 years after Elise Reingard vanished, a discovery changed everything. A former priest-turned-historian named Emil Hartzig had been investigating the story of the doll. He followed it back, not to a curse, not to a forest spirit, but to a man, a toy maker, Willem Krause. Willem Krause had lived on the outskirts of Ottern in the early 1800s. A recluse, a craftsman of rare talent. His dolls were known for their beauty and their unsettling realism. He used human hair, painted veins beneath porcelain skin, weighted limbs for lifelike motion. But then, his son died, and everything changed. Krause locked himself away, stopped selling, stopped speaking. Then came rumors of screams in the night, of flickering lights from his workshop, of dolls that wept. Hartzig found Krause's journals buried beneath the floorboards of the old workshop, hidden inside a locked iron box. The entries began normal business records, doll designs. But then they spiraled. If the soul leaves, what remains? Can grief be molded? She speaks to me. In dreams, she tells me how to shape her. In one entry, he described a prototype, a doll that could remember, that moved when no one watched, that was sealed with a sacrifice, and the most chilling line of all, she needs children to stay young. The priest was horrified. He tried to burn the journals, but before he could publish his findings, he vanished. His cottage, found empty. His fireplace, still warm, and in the ashes, a small porcelain hand. Willem Krause had vanished long ago, but his creation lived on. The doll wasn't cursed. It was designed, crafted with intention, and now it was out of anyone's control. The year was 1885. The deaths hadn't stopped, but they had slowed. Some claimed the doll was satisfied. Others whispered of a deal, an unholy pact between grief-stricken parents and something far older. It was during this year that the ritual began. The first ritual was held in secret deep in the crypt beneath the old chapel. Records say it lasted 7 hours. Each parent brought an offering, a scrap of clothing, a lock of hair, a small toy or tooth from the lost. These were placed in a bowl of cedar wood, lit with animal fat and sage. The smoke, they claimed, pleased her. They didn't pray to God. They prayed to Kindsmutter. And in return, they said she whispered back. She promised no more would vanish. If we remember, soon every home had a shrine. Small, hidden, maintained quietly. Parents would leave small offerings, a button, a baby tooth, a doll's eye, just enough to show they remembered. just enough to appease her. Skeptics from nearby towns arrived to debunk the claims. One man stole the doll from the chapel. He was found 3 days later in the woods frozen, his mouth filled with ash. The doll was back in its case, unmoved, untouched. After that, no one dared interfere. The ritual became custom. Once a month, every parent would gather, offer, burn, chant, and for a time, it worked. The disappearances stopped. For 12 years, not a single child went missing. 12 years of silence, but silence is never permanent, because eventually, she asked for more. For 12 years, the silence had held. The doll remained in its case. Children were safe. The village dared to believe they had done enough. But in the spring of 1897, during what should have been another peaceful ritual, something happened. The ashes stirred. They said the smoke didn't rise. It fell, spilling across the floor like fog, curling around the villagers' legs. A new symbol appeared in the ash when no one remembered drawing. A circle. Inside it, a child's handprint, fingers facing down. The next day, a child vanished. Her name was Lot, age 6. The ritual had failed, or worse, it had summoned something stronger. In desperation, they turned to the chapel, but the doll was gone. Its glass case was shattered from the inside, and in its place, written in soot on the wall, "You stopped believing." The villagers panicked. The old shrine was abandoned. Homes were emptied. Children were sent away, but it was too late. The doll had begun to move on its own terms. And now it didn't want offerings. It wanted witnesses. Over the next 6 months, 5 more children vanished. In each case, the pattern repeated, a strange wind the night before. Ash near the windowsills. The faint sound of laughter in the dark ... In one instance, a farmer claimed to see the doll walking across a field at dawn. She turned to look at him and smiled. The villagers were now faced with a terrible realization. The rituals hadn't saved them. They had fed her, made her stronger, taught her that fear was a form of worship, and the more they gave into it, the more real she became. In her absence, a new legend spread that the doll was no longer confined to Ottern, that she had left the forest, that she was seeking new children, new homes, new offerings. And somewhere in the quiet, when no one is looking, the ashes still stir, and the handprint always points inward. Her name was Greta Maurer. She had lost 3 children. She had nothing left to give, except herself. On the night of the equinox, Greta entered the abandoned chapel alone. No villagers, no ritual, no permission, just the doll. Greta had been a seamstress. She'd mended the doll once years earlier. She knew its weight, its feel, its hunger. She brought with her one thing, a locket. Inside it, a photo of her 3 children. She placed it beside the doll, and then, without speaking, she sat in the circle of ash and waited. No one knows exactly what happened that night, but by morning, the storm had passed and Greta was gone. In her place, seated perfectly upright, was the doll, wearing a new dress, made of silk and human hair. That day, the disappearances stopped. Forever. Some say Greta made the final offering. Some say she became part of the doll. Others whisper something stranger, that she didn't give her life. She gave her soul. The chapel was sealed after that, the altar buried beneath stone and salt. But legends have a way of slipping through the cracks. And dolls, as we've learned, are never truly still. Today, The town of Ottern is just a name on an old map. The chapel has gone demolished and forgotten. The fields have grown over, the graves unmarked. But in a private collection in Vienna, the doll still exists. Historians say it's a coincidence. Just a doll, nothing more. But locals avoid the case. Some say it's colder near the glass. Some swear its eyes change color. And once a year on the spring equinox, someone always leaves a tooth, wrapped in silk. We may never know what Willem Krauss truly created. Was it grief that gave it power? A community's sorrow, shaped into porcelain and teeth? Or was it something far older, something that used Krauss as a vessel, the way it used Greta and the children and the smoke? A presence, a hunger, a face that could never be forgotten, because it looked just like the children it took. Dolls are made to resemble us, to carry memory, to hold presence, to give the illusion that something is still there. But what if, once in a while, one of them really does hold something? Something we shouldn't have remembered. Something that remembers us. So next time you see a doll in a thrift store window, or find one sitting where you swear you didn't leave it, ask yourself, is it just a doll? Or is it waiting for the next offering?